Once upon a time, in a bright, sun-drenched meadow, a family of ants was hard at work. They were a sight to see, a tiny army marching with purpose. Some carried heavy grains of wheat, their little bodies straining under the weight. Others were carefully laying out grains to dry in the warm sunshine, making sure their winter pantry would be perfect. Nearby, in the lush green grass, lived a very different character, a cheerful grasshopper. His days were filled with music and laughter. He'd hop from blade to blade, his fiddle tucked under his chin, singing his heart out without a care in the world. One of his friends was an ant from the busy colony. Every single day, through the long, hot summer, the grasshopper would watch her. She would trudge back and forth, carrying food on her back, storing it away in her home deep underground. The grasshopper found this incredibly amusing. He would often call out to her, his voice full of mirth. "Hey there, my friend," he'd chirp. "Why are you working so hard in this beautiful sun? Come on, leave that heavy stuff behind. Join me. Let's sing and dance and enjoy this perfect day." But the ant would just shake her head, never breaking her stride. "I can't right now," she'd reply, her voice a little breathless. "Winter is on its way, and I must prepare for it. There will be no food then." She continued her tireless work, focused on securing her future for the cold, harsh months ahead when venturing outside would be impossible. The grasshopper would just laugh. "Winter, that's ages away. Look around, there's plenty of food for everyone, enough to last a lifetime," he'd say before starting another happy tune on his fiddle. The ant, however, paid him no mind and worked diligently all summer long. One afternoon, as the sun began to cast long shadows, the ant paused her work beside the grasshopper. She looked at him with genuine concern. "You should really start storing some food for yourself," she advised gently. "Winter will be here before you know it." The grasshopper just smiled his carefree smile. "Don't you worry about me. There's plenty of time. Right now, everything is just fine." And with a flick of his leg, he hopped away, back to his life of leisure. But seasons, as they always do, began to change. The warm summer breeze turned into a crisp autumn wind. The vibrant green leaves turned to gold and red, and then they fell, leaving the trees bare. Winter arrived with a sudden icy blast. A thick blanket of snow covered the entire meadow, and the world became silent and white. The grasshopper shivered in the freezing air. His songs had long since died in his throat. He was weak, and a gnawing hunger had settled deep in his belly. He searched desperately for something to eat, but everything was frozen solid, buried under the deep snow. It was so cold he could barely move his legs. Then a thought sparked in his mind. His friend, the ant. He remembered her endless work, her warnings. With the last of his strength, he struggled through the snow to the ant's nest and knocked weakly on the tiny door. The door creaked open and the ant appeared, warm and well-fed, but she didn't invite him in. She stood at the entrance, her expression serious. "What were you doing all last summer?" she asked, her voice firm. "While I was working day and night, where were you? Why didn't you store anything for the winter?" The grasshopper hung his head in shame. He had no answer. He could only plead, his voice barely a whisper. "Please, my dear friend, let me in. I'm so cold, weak, and hungry." But the aunt did not move. She simply looked at the shivering grasshopper who had spent his summer laughing instead of preparing. The grasshopper remained out in the cold, hungry for the rest of the long, hard winter. It was there, in the biting wind and snow, that he finally learned a very difficult lesson. He understood that there is a time for work and a time for play, and that preparing for the future is the wisest thing one can do.